Bitcoin up almost 2% today. The rest of crypto having a great bounce today. I've been calling for some bottoming signals that I think you guys should all be paying attention to. One of which is that Bitcoin has hit the breakdown target of this huge rising wedge pattern I've been talking about. It went down a lot faster than I expected, which is, in my opinion, better than a slow death. Okay, the breakdown target here is almost exactly 80,000. Okay, so that is one signal why I think this could potentially bottom here, right? And even if we don't, I do think the downside for Bitcoin, which is the driver of this crypto market, is still limited. Another signal, let me show you guys, is that we are on the monthly 21 SMA, and we have not hit this moving average for the entire time of this trend. And this trend has started when the monthly candle first broke above this moving average back in October of 2023. And every time you hit a moving average as either support or resistance, chances are it's usually going to be a very good support or resistance, very strong support or resistance. Okay, you guys can study moving averages and tell me if and verify that yourself. Let me illustrate one more thing here, just to prove my point that this monthly 21 SMA is going to be very strong support, or likely very strong support. This was the last time Bitcoin has actually went down to this support. Okay, it was back in January of 2022, if you guys have been around for that long. Okay, that was basically in the middle of the bear markets. And this moving average still held the price action up for 4 monthly candles. Okay, that's how strong it was. And that was a very long overdue bear market. And what I'm talking about is this. It's because Bitcoin has actually went all the way up to an RSI reading of over 90, getting bearish divergence, dumping from that bear market, and this moving average still held for 4 months. Okay, that's why I think this is a very strong support, and we could be getting a bottom here. Okay, another indicator I want to show you guys is the daily time frame RSI, and we have went down to as low as about 23. Last time we went down to 23, or in that range, was back in February of this year, which was very dicey for the crypto markets. And since it hit that low RSI reading, and the price action was at about 84,000, Bitcoin did continue going down some more, but the downside was limited because it went down to, I think, as low as about 74,000. So in another 10-15% kind of, before getting a huge rally all the way back up to about 125,000, of course. So this is why I'm saying the downside is limited for all those factors I talked about on the technical charts. However, another thing I want to bring up to you guys is that this has completely flipped from Friday. If you guys saw my Friday video, you guys saw that on the CME Watch tool, which is very accurate in predicting a rate cut for the next FOMC meeting. And on Friday, when I did my video, the chances were at below 40%. Now it's currently almost 80%. So what exactly happens? It's not really being talked about in the news. Did something break in the labor markets that is not disclosed to the public? Because the only reasoning I got from news was that John Williams, which was one of the Fed presidents, came out and voiced his support for a rate cut. But I also see highlights of other Fed presidents like Susan Collins not in favor of a rate cut. So I really doubt that one Fed president could have made the 40% difference that we are seeing in this CME watch tool. Okay, now these probabilities do change, right, as new events and data unfold. But that is still a pretty significant increase, and that is very bullish for the markets because that means if we get a Fed rate cut for this upcoming FOMC meeting, I mean, that's been one of my main arguments. That's going to drive cheaper money into those markets. All right, let's go ahead and take a look into some news, and we're going to be talking about, it's going to be a shorter video on here today because I am running a little bit low on time, but if you guys have any requests for any altcoins in this market, drop a like, comment, subscribe. I'll pick a request to you for you guys on a daily basis, okay? I will also do a few more shorter videos later after this, so stick around for that. But of course, I never trade altcoins without a clear understanding of Bitcoin because that could very much affect your trades. Let's take a look into the first piece of news here. This is by Cointelegraph. Bitcoin rallies as US dollar strengthens. Are crypto traders walking into a trap? Now, it's always good to hear what the other side has to say because I want to see if they make sense. I want to see if that invalidates my current arguments. So, US dollar. So let's see. This person's got to be talking about the DXY. So let's take a look into the DXY here. Now, the DXY is, I mean, a lot of people have been saying that it's negatively correlated with Bitcoin, right? I don't see the strong correlation. That is just me, okay? Because there has been extended periods of times when the DXY has been going down, but Bitcoin doesn't really go up, okay? And there has also been, I mean, the correlation is not, it's not very strong in my opinion, okay? And the DXY right now is, I mean, it's looking like it's on a rebound. Okay, this is the weekly time frame for the DXY. It's on a falling wedge pattern, right? So could this be a trap for Bitcoin holders, for the Bitcoin markets and risk on assets? I mean, I personally would not. I personally would not think that this is too much of an indicator to be paying attention to because, like I said, I've seen periods of times when there is strong negative correlation, and there are times when I don't think there's correlation. Okay, if you guys want me to talk more about this, I can, and I can pick out the data for you where I see correlation and not. But overall, I don't see strong negative correlation here. Okay, let's take a look into the next piece here. The next piece is by Cointelegraph as well. Bitcoin price 80,000 low was bottom. Thanks, Arthur Hayes. What are the key points that he's talking about? Bitcoin should have bottomed at 80,000 last week, according to former BitMEX CEO Arthur Hayes. Now, I am long on quite a bit of the altcoins here, and I am looking to get back into Bitcoin. So my opinions on these markets, on crypto as a whole in general, is bullish. However, these are just my opinions. What I'm personally doing, it's not financial advice. Okay, you guys got to form your own opinions and strategies. Let's come back here to the second point. Liquidity conditions are poised to turn in the bull market's favor. What the U.S. Federal Reserve said to NQT, that is also true. Okay, that is ending in, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it is December the 1st. Okay, I'm just citing other YouTube news channels on this because I did not read too much into the Fed report. The buzz around Fed rate cut moves remains highly volatile. Yes, it does, because we saw a 40% below 40% chance of a Fed rate cut last week on Friday, and now we're seeing an almost 80% chance. So let's see what these couple of weeks will hold for the probability of a Fed rate cut. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next piece here. This one's by Crypto Potato. Bitcoin price analysis: is Bitcoin heading to 80,000 or 96,000 next? So let's take a look into some key levels that I think we should be paying attention to here for Bitcoin. Okay. Now it has broken above some key short-term moving averages. The next test here is going to be looking at the 3-day time frame. And what I'm talking about is this. On the 3-day time frame, I talked about a falling wedge pattern that Bitcoin has actually broken down from. If Bitcoin can actually break above back into this falling wedge pattern with the 3-day candle close, that would basically invalidate this falling wedge breakdown, which would be looking a lot better, at least in the short term. So look for a 3-day candle close back into this falling wedge pattern. I'm seeing the resistance to be this downward sloping bottom trend line, so 94,000. And then about 94,000, that would be a clear break as of what I'm seeing right now. Okay, of course it's downward sloping, so something to be keeping track of. Next piece is by B in Crypto. Max Kaiser calls bottom as Saylor signals Bitcoin strength. US crypto news. Okay, so now we're seeing more people calling bottoms. Okay, but I've been saying the bottoming signals were there. Okay, that's why I have not switched up my stance for the past couple of months, even though it has been pretty dicey. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and go to Ethereum and take a look into what's happening with Ethereum just real quick. I talked about on the daily time frame, I do have Ethereum right now on leverage, and I am looking to take a short-term profit for Ethereum, okay, from my position here. So I talked about this falling wedge pattern. The bears got trapped here because they try to break down from this falling wedge pattern. Bulls bought it right back up, as you guys see a wick below the pattern here, but the candle bodies are ending back into the pattern. That is a classic bear trap, and there could very likely be a short squeeze that is coming on here. Okay, that's basically where the bears realize they got trapped and they buy back their positions. And this is still a valid falling wedge pattern here. Price target, if it breaks out by this point, for example, price target will be about 46.50 for price targets. Now, price targets are estimates only. There could be more, there could be less. A lot of which, for these altcoins, does depend on what happens with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin dumps, that could drag quite a bit of these altcoins down with it. However, if Bitcoin pumps, that's going to be very good for a lot of these altcoins, as we're seeing today, okay? I also want to bring up to you guys another metric here, which is Bitcoin dominance, which is also going to be very important to be paying attention to, because Bitcoin dominance here looks like it's going to be going on quite a bit of a downtrend here. I talked about a falling wedge pattern scenario. It's not completely validated yet. So this is a falling wedge pattern scenario. If Bitcoin dominance doesn't break above this upper trend line here, you can expect more downside from this falling wedge, right? Now, falling wedges are bullish patterns that usually break back out, okay? However, when you're running within the falling wedge, it's in a downtrend, okay? So I would say there's a high chance that Bitcoin dominance is going to continue falling. The next support level would be about 57.5%. If that doesn't hold, then somewhere along this range here, which is going to be looking pretty good for the altcoins, if Bitcoin doesn't dump, of course. So this is basically what I'm seeing for Ethereum, Bitcoin, and the broader crypto markets. Let me know if you guys want to continue seeing any more. I'm going to talk about Bitcoin anyways. So let me know if you guys want to Have any requests for any other coins in this market by dropping a like, comment, subscribe. I'll pick a request to you for you guys on a daily basis, and I'll see you on the next one.